StudyIQ IAS, आपका सिलेक्शन हमारा मिशन.
Hi everyone, this is Dr. Anamta Rizvi, your UPSC English Literature educator. Today we are discussing a very important topic, and that is God, doubt and the fall of faith. Well, that's a very interesting title, and it has a lot of ideas that belong to the 20th century that are associated with this. Now, 20th century में ऐसा क्या हुआ था that this started happening? And of course, we know the two wars that the human race ever faced, the First World War as well as Second World War, that exactly happened in the first half of the 20th century. But before that, also something happened जहाँ पे the entire idea of God was shaken. Yes, and today we are going to talk about that how this idea that the supreme power, the creation of mankind, everything came into a lot of questioning. Okay, so today we're going to talk about that. Moving ahead, Darwin and the collapse of biblical certainty. Now, when we talk about this, Charles Darwin, 1859 में अपने book लाए थे, Origin of Species. Now, this book was something that shook the entire foundation of religion, I would say. Just not Christianity, but every religion that was there at that time. And that was the first idea, the creation of God. So many religious texts talk about that, how the world was created, how this universe was created by Adam and Eve. But Charles Darwin brought another very revolutionary theory, and that was the Origin of Species, 1859 में, which challenged the literal biblical account of creation. वो क्या था? Evolution replaced divine design with natural selection and randomness. So he said that it was evolution that happened. It was not something that was just there. It did not happen like that. But evolution हुआ, जहाँ पे human beings did not appear the way they appear, but it was only through evolution where they became from absolutely uncivilized animalistic beings to human beings. Human beings were no longer seen as uniquely created in God's image, but as products of biological process. So this happened in millions and millions of process, and this is how human race was created. That was Charles Darwin's revolutionary theory mentioned in Origin of Species. This shook Victorian religious confidence and initiated intellectual doubt. Now, this was an idea जहाँ पे Victorian era में, because it happened post 1859, so Victorian era में इसका बहुत इसमें discourses हुए, discussions हुए. There were many ideas that propagate the idea that, okay, there's a direct questioning to religion, there's a direct questioning to God. So a lot of authors, a lot of literary critics began looking at religion in a very different perspective. In fact, Matthew Arnold ने ये तक propose किया था that poetry should be considered to replace something called religion. Okay, so that was something that was there. So Darwin and the collapse of biblical creation was something that you could say that yes, this entire idea started happening. Then you have Victorian crisis of faith. Of course, in this time, जब ये होगा, तो there was a complete Victorian crisis of faith. Science, geology, and evolutionary theory, they all weakened the unquestioned belief. Till now, things were completely unquestioned. But because science was happening, geology was there were inventions that were happening, and this started questioning the unquestioning belief in religion. In Tennyson's In Memoriam, faith struggles against scientific doubt and personal grief. So Tennyson का जो In Memoriam है आपका, which is very much there in UPSC English Literature syllabus, that started questioning God, faith, and the fact that there is something. But end में आके चाहे he accepts it, because literature, poetry was being considered something that could replace religion. And this was an idea that was circulating. God is no longer a visible authority, but a distant and uncertain presence. That was again reflected in the literature. Religion becomes fragile, internal, and emotionally unstable. So you can say that 19th century was a time when things started being questioned tremendously in Europe. There were people were asking, there were deluge of questions that was there. And yes, easily, the faith on God was being questioned. Now, modernism and spiritual fragmentation. Iska escalation kab hua? when it happened in the First World War, that was from 1914 to 1919, and then after some time, Second World War, 1939 to 1945, there was complete massacre. There was, you can say, pandemonium on this earth, and human race saw so much of bloodshed for the first time. That was also a moment wherein there was such questioning by the writers, by the poets, by the playwrights of that time, that where is God? So World War I shattered belief in divine order and moral progress. Writers like T.S. Eliot, Wasteland में, उन्होंने बोला that how this entire world is a wasteland. So The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot, spiritual emptiness replaces sacred certainty. This was an idea जो कि बहुत ही ज़्यादा explore किया गया है Wasteland में. Civilization appears broken, fragmented, and morally exhausted. So moral exhaustion, extreme, no morality, immorality ho gaya, ya evil, ya whatever malice pervades every corner of the earth. That is what Wasteland mein T.S. Eliot talked about. And where is God? So now God is absent. Rituals survive, but meaning collapse. So God is not there. Rituals hai, but what is the meaning of life? That is collapsing. This was how 20th century was questioning the entire idea of God, of the existence of the supreme being. Now, Yeats and apocalyptic anxiety. Let me also clarify that T.S. Eliot, W.B. Yeats, ये सब writers, सब poets आपके course में हैं. T.S. Eliot, Nobel Prize winner, so is W.B. Yeats, and these are there in your course. Wasteland आपके course में नहीं है, लेकिन yes, definitely, the love song of J. Alfred Prufrock, which again talks about existential crisis, is very much in your course. So these ideas reverberate in your courses, and यही questions आपके exam में आ सकते हैं. In the second coming, which is very much in UPSC English Literature course, और इसमें क्या पूछा गया है, where Yeats talks about a world where the center cannot hold. The center is being questioned. Who is at the center? We know that God is at the center, and the world is collapsing. So the traditional Christian order collapses into chaos. The poem suggests a terrifying new era without any divine stability. So you can see, ये सब किसके ideas थे? These ideas that were being talked about by these Nobel Prize winners, and this was after the First World War. Faith gives way to prophetic dread and historical uncertainty. These again being discussed very vehemently in these poems. Existentialism and the silence of God. Now, such kind of writing was being written. War poets were there. Wilfred Owen was there. War poets में आपके C.H. Sassoon थे, जो आपके courses में नहीं है, but W.H. Auden आपके course में है. So these writers were talking about that. But the big blow came after the Second World War. And that was when, after the Second World War, questions so startling and so blatant started being asked that where is God? For instance, आपका Samuel Beckett ने Waiting for Godot में, a lot of critics talks about that, Godot, Waiting for Godot में, Godot is God. And you're constantly waiting for God to come, but he doesn't come. Is he even there? So these kind of questions started happening, and Samuel Beckett, you could say, was the push behind it, was the energy behind such kind of questions. So Waiting for Godot by Samuel Beckett, God never arrives. Waiting becomes an endless, purposeless, and absurd. So because itna loss of life tha, such young deaths were there, we know that what the massacre was there, the Holocaust, everything, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. So these kind of this still gives us tremors even after so many years. And that started questioning the entire existence of God. Then you have other anger and disillusionment. So again, let me tell you, Samuel Beckett ka Waiting for Godot is in your course. In Look Back in Anger by John Osborne is in your course. So all these writers, all these playwrights jo aapke course mein hai, I'm just telling you again and again because this kind of a question can be asked in a UPSC English Literature Optional subject. Again, in Look Back in Anger by John Osborne, moral authority and religious certainty are rejected. So morality हो गया, whatever authority हो गया, John Osborne का जो character है completely rejects that. So the post-war generation and express frustration with hollow institutions, and God is not debated, but he is irrelevant for them. So this generation जिसने suffer किया, उसने तो suffer किया, they kind of fought the war, but then the generation that suffered the economic crisis, the moral crisis, the existential crisis, this generation did not only question God, but they rejected this idea of God. And this very much happened in 1950s and 1960s. Then you have, from theological order to moral relativism, Renaissance literature assumed a structured divine hierarchy. Now, when we talk about the very beginning, अगर हम Renaissance को देखें, Restoration को देखें, Romantic Age को देखें, there's a certain divine authority that is followed. There's no questioning. There's complete acceptance. But ये starkly different हो जाता है beginning from the Victorian era. And this is the reason that this question lies on the surface, that how did it happen? How did the questioning of divine authority started happening? So modern literature reflects chaos. अभी जो अगर हम मॉडर्न लिटरेचर पढ़ेंगे, द पेपर 2 जो आपके मॉडर्न और पोस्ट मॉडर्न लिटरेचर है, यू विल often see the idea of chaos, fragmentation, and moral ambiguity. The fall is no longer theological but psychological and cultural, and human beings must create meaning in a silent universe. So silent universe, maybe there's no answer. So people are like, maybe when you die, there's no God. Or maybe when you die, there is hell and heaven. There is God. So this question will never end. And this question goes on and on forever till the time that human race is evolving and developing and creating new ideas. The shift from divine authority to human responsibility, early literature justifies God ways. For instance, Paradise Lost by John Milton, he said this, that I have written this book to justify the ways of God to men. To this point, that is their God. So this is how that literature also evolved, mirroring the socio-political situation of their times. Modern literature questions whether God exists at all. Faith becomes a very personal choice, and literature mirrors what exactly the society is thinking, what the people are thinking, and it shows the transition from the sacred, from the things that you cannot question, from the belief that remain unchallenged, to that idea wherein to secular modernity, wherein you are accepting there is ambivalence, there's ambiguity. However, there's also complete faith. Okay, so with this, guys, I'm coming to an end of this short lecture. Again, such kind of questions are very much asked in your UPSC English Literature Optional subject. If you want to go ahead, and explore more such ideas, discourses, and how to combat these questions, how to write answers, and how to develop arguments on these questions, you all are very much welcome to join my course, and that happens every day, 1 p.m. my classes happens, and right now we are running a very good discount that's flat 50% off for a limited period. My code is AR Live. You can go ahead, join the course if you're interested in UPSC English Literature Optional subject. This would be a very great chance for all of you to enroll. मैंने अभी recently में ही अपना course शुरू किया है from the very scratch. I am on Paradise Lost. I'm completing right now, I'm starting with book 4. So if you really want to go ahead, join the course, be a part of this batch, and make sure that all your syllabus is very chronologically done. Okay. So guys, again, 12,999 का course है, flat 50% off है, and soon these classes will start and you will be able to benefit a lot. So thank you everyone, and I hope to see all of you in the classes.
StudyIQ IAS, आपका सिलेक्शन हमारा मिशन।